Gears of War is the most comically masculine, testosterone-fueled adventure since the movie Predator. But while Predator used a cast of super buff, talented actors to portray the massive size and deadly nature of the Predator, Gears of War uses a cast of super buff actors to... Screw it. You guys want to go kill locusts or what?
Gears of War is an extremely difficult game to review because it almost feels counterintuitive to analyze on a deeper level. It's like trying to explain why food tastes good or why water quenches thirst. I don't know why, it just does. I could sum up why Gears of War is so awesome in 5 words. Chainsaw on gun, neuron activation. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was worth the wait. I'll see you in 5 years for the Gears of War 2 review. Peace! Gears of War is one of the most important shooters of the last 2 decades. Its influence is so widespread, you probably don't even realize when you're playing something that's been influenced by it. Epic Games kickstarted a massive franchise with this instant hit back in 2006, spawning 2 critically acclaimed sequels, a prequel, comic books, an upcoming Netflix movie. Today, the Gears of War legacy is well known. But let's ignore all of that. Let's shift gears and rewind the clock to 2005. I want to take you back to when Halo was Microsoft's right-hand man and Gears of War was its left. What really attributed to its success? Why is it considered such a landmark title? Does the gameplay still hold up today? Or was Gears of War simply overrated? Well, let's hit the bench press, link up with Delta Squad, and rev up our Lancers straight into this.
Oh yeah!
No! Fuck!
Fence is open! Run!
But before we jump into it, this video is sponsored by Displate and their amazing metal posters. Are you looking to buff up your room decor? Then you need to order some Displates. They work with over 40,000 licensed artists and have over 1.3 million designs to choose from, ranging from movies, video games, anime. If you're a fan of something, chances are Displate offers a poster of it. Attaching them to the wall is incredibly easy and doesn't require any tools. Just wipe down the part of the wall, stick on the leaflet, hold for 5 seconds, do the same with the magnet, and poof! You can now put up any Displate poster and even swap them out. They come in 3 different sizes, and if you really want to get fancy, you can even add some outer trim. Displate currently ships to 56 countries and delivers in 4 to 5 business days. And by ordering these posters, you are directly supporting the channel. And if you use code ACTMAN at checkout, I'll get you 22% off 1 to 2 Displates and 33% off 3 or more. So what are you waiting for? Order your awesome Displate posters today and display yourself. Thank you, Displate, for sponsoring this video.
And now for something completely different.
With Gears of War, we're delivering the most powerful high-definition gaming experience to date. Couldn't be more excited to be here because we're delivering the next generation of gaming right here and right now.
14 years building up to this moment since I started doing this.
Back in 2005, Microsoft was under a lot of pressure. They got the jump in the 7th gen console war by releasing the 360 a year before their competitors. But 1/3 of their launch lineup consisted of sports games. Unlike the Xbox, the 360 didn't launch with its killer app yet. And while Oblivion was on the horizon, Microsoft needed a solid multiplayer game to sell the 360 and continue pushing Xbox Live. Sony and Nintendo were hot on their trail with the PS3 and Wii, both set to hit shelves in November 2006. And if the 360 didn't have an answer, the tides would turn quickly.
Microsoft has one punch to throw before the juggernaut of the PlayStation 3 launches, and Gears is that punch.
Determined not to squander their position, Microsoft decided, fuck it, my only option is to gamble it all, betting all their chips on Epic's upcoming Gears of War.
Microsoft has never slung their weight this much behind a new IP that they do not own, and they're taking this very, very seriously.
With the future of the Xbox 360 at stake, all this pressure and stress then fell on the shoulders of Epic Games and its lead designer Cliff Bleszinski.
I lose sleep over this game every night, thinking about how it controls, thinking about the pacing of it, thinking about how strong the enemies are. This is the company's baby, it's my baby, and we're betting the farm on it.
Launching a new IP is always risky business, but to bank on it becoming a system seller, a killer app, that is quite the gamble.
Microsoft is really staked on this game. This is their killer app for the holiday for Xbox 360.
So Gears of War, the new killer app for Xbox 360, right?
Absolutely.
And when it came to the reveal of Gears of War at E3 2006, Epic needed to make a statement. After the demo, Cliff got off stage and went outside for some fresh air, only to be greeted by a familiar face.
Hey, good job.
How are you, man?
When you do those live demos, I guess you really gotta stay with the aliens or you'll look bad.
Did you hear the sound and everything?
Oh yeah,
It's just
fantastic.
like boom, it's like the bass and then it's crunchy and like I labored over that assault rifle sound with the sound designer. We're like, it's gotta be pop, it's gotta pop.
I love that chainsaw.
Congratulations, you impressed Bill Gates. Mission fucking accomplished. It's funny because a few days before E3, Microsoft executive Peter Moore felt the Chainsaw Lancer was too gratuitous and gory, and he suggested that Epic remove it from the demo.
I guess Peter Moore's contention about the saw is that it's a little, over the top gory.
That's exactly what the kind of branding we were going for, I thought. It's what makes Gears Gears, and we need to have that moment at E3.
And to this day, that's true. I think Bill Gates' reaction represents how everyone felt the first time they saw the Lancer in action. Yeah, exactly. It's become one of the most iconic weapons in video game history, and fans probably shuddered to think what Gears of War would be without it. But Epic stuck to their guns, literally, and I think that type of confidence in their vision is why Gears of War has such a crystal clear identity. Even though Microsoft questioned certain elements, they ultimately trusted in the team and their vision of a dark, gritty third-person shooter. They were even persuaded by Epic to increase the RAM of the 360, so that Gears of War and future titles could be rendered and played at 720p. The reason I bring all this up is that maybe this sort of relationship between Microsoft and their studios is what's been missing recently, and why so many of Xbox's core franchises have fallen on hard times. Gears of War is the perfect crash course on how to market a game. It changed how games are marketed. Now, I wish I could play the Mad World trailer, but copyright is a bitch. And so is your mom. For a game about macho space marines blasting subterranean bugmen, you'd expect the trailer to showcase a bloodbath of gore and violence. Instead, you get hopelessness, desperation. You can see it all on Marcus's face. I mean, this really struck a chord with people. We'd never seen a game advertised in such a dramatic, serious way. It felt like a movie trailer. And it was all done with in-game assets. Epic weren't just selling Gears of War. They were selling Unreal Engine 3. And the viral success of the Mad World trailer inspired other studios to mimic its tone, atmosphere, and use popular music in their trailers too. It showcased the power of the Xbox 360, and for consumers, we were sold. What separated Gears of War from every other shooter were its dark, gritty undertones and the weight behind it all. All of these pieces set Gears of War up to be the next flagship of Xbox until Master Chief's glorious return. After E3, Gears quickly became one of the most anticipated games in recent memory. But would it live up to the hype?
Yes!
But that's enough history lessons. How did everything turn out? On the surface, Gears of War might seem like a big dumb action game for big dumb people. And that's because it is.
You stupid.
But it was made by really, really, really smart people. This isn't an insult, by the way. Dumb fun is sometimes the best kind of fun. I like being able to turn my brain off and just enjoy something. Enjoy explosions and gunfights. You know, not every video game has to be a fucking philosophy lecture on the complex moral dilemmas of altruism versus self-interest and how these things coincide with the concept of free will and choice. BioShock? Goddamn nerd.
A man chooses. A slave obeys. That was in your house, bitch! You hear that shit?
But seriously, you ever feel like developers nowadays tend to overcomplicate things? Like they make getting to the fun part of a game an obstacle instead of something immediate. Oh, baby! The real challenge begins after you beat the game. Well, you've got to put 15 hours into this RPG, then it starts to get good. Gears of War harkens back to a time when AAA games were made with the simple mindset of, hey, let's make a fun video game.
Years ago, I wanted to see a gun with a chainsaw on it to me, right? Like a futuristic version of a bayonet. Chainsaw with a gun? Now that sounds like a chocolate and a peanut butter type situation.
A time where the phrase pick up and play was more prevalent.
Gears of War is about fluid in and out of cover, being able to take cover anywhere. The weapons are easy to use. It's very sort of intuitive, and we're finding that with press people and new people coming onto the project that they're able to pick it up and play pretty quickly. And so people are having fun because it's so easy to play. I find it's just its simplicity is what makes it different for me.
You play Gears of War for 10 minutes and you know right then and there if you're gonna keep playing or not. You know exactly what it is. What does that mean, double lancered? Oh, fuck you, son of a cock! Gears of War obviously has that classic dude bro vibe that appealed to a lot of guys and characterized the Xbox 360 era.
Huh? Where the fuck you live? Come on, tell me, bitch.
I live in North Carolina, so I hope you live close so I can fuck your sister.
But there's more than meets the eye. You might think the absurd proportions is just a stylistic choice to make the characters and art style unique. On second thought, maybe their bodies aren't so absurd. But there's more to it than simply trying to make the player feel like Hal in that one episode of Malcolm in the Middle. If these dude bros are comically oversized, what does that say about the Locusts, who are just as beefy and jacked? It says the Locusts aren't a joke. Their basic enemy type can match the toughness and physicality of our heroes. It illustrates what an overpowering threat the Locusts are. It's the same thing as Predator. I think the best word to describe Gears of War is weight. When you take cover, Marcus slams his body against the wall. You feel the weight of all that meat and muscle crashing into a solid object. Every footstep carries a loud thud as you can feel the weight of all their armor and equipment. Even the soundtrack is as bombastic and loud as possible. Sure, the soundtrack is loud, but it knows when to be quiet, when to establish mood and atmosphere, and the haunting melody of the main theme has become so iconic. When you chainsaw a locust, their body twitches uncontrollably, blood splatters everywhere, even on screen, as their torso is torn in half. When you curb stomp an enemy, your character chambers that kick like a bullet before unleashing it. All this violence and gore is just, well, it's awesome. What do you want me to say? Yeah. It really added a lot of brutality and grit to Gears of War. Weight also works in describing the enemies you fight.
The bigger they are, the harder they fall.
With enemies like the Boomer, the same weapons that might stun drones and wretches or send them flying don't have the same impact. One sniper shot to the dome will decapitate drones, but the Boomer will keep strutting on them hoes. The core gameplay for Gears of War is mechanically solid. It works. Kind of like a...
Don't say it. Don't fucking say it.
Gear. Beneath the absurd simplicity, there are some pretty genius ideas. Take the active reload mechanic. In every other shooter besides Doom, reloading is a moment of downtime and vulnerability. But in Gears, it can empower the player.
Let's do this.
Mastering the timing on this minigame for each weapon then becomes an expression of skill. If you screw up the timing, your reload will take much longer. But if you hit it just right, you'll reload much faster. And the perfect reload will cause those rounds to deal more damage. This mechanic not only is exclusive to Gears of War and sets it apart from every other shooter, but it actually makes reloading fun. Everything in this game is big. Size does matter. The buildings are massive. Some locusts like the Corpser and Brumac are towering behemoths, and it all adds a sense of scale to this conflict. This is the war to end all wars. Emphasizing cover as a mechanic was a unique idea at the time, because it forced players to approach firefights more strategically. You get your ass kicked in Gears if you just run out into the open without a plan. Players had to think more tactically about positioning and movement. And as someone who has barely played Gears of War multiplayer, it's a lot of fun, man, even to this day. Oh, baby, got him again. Experienced gamers can master techniques like wall bouncing, and it's interesting to watch the movement tech. A decent player could get the kill on a great player simply by having better positioning. No. What the fuck? Where were you? Where did you come from? It wasn't just about outgunning your opponents, but outsmarting them, outmaneuvering them. The controls are intuitive and quick to learn, which made it real easy for newcomers to acclimate. The cover mechanics also added quite a bit of immersion because that's what you do in a war, you fucking take cover. See? Yeah, see, that's what happens. So in the campaign, these battles made you feel like you were part of a military engagement between two factions.
It feels more like a gunfight. The fact that these characters dive into cover like they mean it, like their lives depend on it. The fact that they're not like doing this kind of circle strafing dance around each other and jumping in Battlefield. I mean, there's really no jumping in war, right? So you want to keep your head down, not up. So I think that, coupled with the fact that we've done a really, really good job of handling the third person over-the-shoulder camera, so we almost have the best of both worlds of third and first-person shooters.
I think this is a big reason why a lot of gamers who have served in the military fucking love Gears of War. Part of the reason Gears of War appealed to such a wide audience is it took more hardcore tactical aspects and fitted them into a smaller, more intimate space. The large health pools mean you either need one good shot or concentrated fire to take someone down. This means bullshit or frustrating deaths are almost non-existent, and that's pretty goddamn rare for a shooter.
We started branching away from the hardcore tactical angle when we started realizing that to a lot of people what tactical means and boils down to is you're shooting tiny little pixels of dudes who are exposed, 500 meters away. We took what we considered the good elements of tactical gameplay, self-preservation and flanking, and we kind of super deformed that and we cram it into a tighter environment where you're playing a tactical game just on a much smaller scale.
The missions for the campaign act like a series of roller coasters. It might be the same ride every time, but if the ride is exhilarating, you can go on that shit a bunch of times. And having multiple forks in the road where players can choose one path or the other does add some slight replayability. At times it can feel like a shooting gallery, but that's kind of the point. And the combat loop never feels too redundant or repetitive. And that's because every few missions they always throw in some monkey wrench like a berserker who can crash through walls and destroy cover. My only major complaint is the limited selection of weapons. Everything feels great to use except maybe the hammerburst rifle, but there was a lot of untapped potential in this first attempt. The chainsaw melee is a risky one-hit kill, but if you're shot while revving, you're stunned and basically become a free kill. Yet it's a great reward for players that do close the distance. It's also a fantastic way to ambush people.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Come on. You pulled that same fucking trick on me twice now.
I'm retarded?
In a campaign, each encounter offers players multiple routes, and planning your movements based on the enemy's position is something you're always thinking about. It's even more fun to coordinate with a buddy when playing co-op, and the game seems more balanced for two players, which makes a solo run on harder difficulties sometimes feel like bullshit. The different locust types are all meant to assault and disrupt your positioning in a different way. Drones lay down suppressive fire, wretches will charge you, boomers shoot explosives that can penetrate light cover. The final boss, General Ram, is a huge pain in the ass. Fuck this guy. Yet I think it's brilliant that the developers basically made him immune to the rules of the game. Like, he doesn't take cover. Cover is for pussies, and that's what you are. The Krill force you out of cover, so you have to approach this fight unlike any other. It's genius. Gears of War managed to carve out its own niche on the Xbox 360 and stand not in front of Halo, but next to it as another reason to buy the console. Because Gears of War was so successful, it popularized cover-based mechanics and paved way for many games to adopt this style of combat in one way or another. To take a page out of Cole's book, let's use a football analogy. Gears of War is the standard run-up-the-middle play. Sometimes it works, but it seems most times it doesn't. The tactic? Obvious brute force. Except it's Marshawn Lynch breaking 9 tackles, running for 67 yards, and scoring the game-winning touchdown. That's Gears of War. The simplest play, executed to perfection.
Gears of of War takes place on Sera, a planet dominated by unrealistic body standards, where every man's bone structure looks something like this.
Here on Sera, life was good until Emergence Day. A date which will live in infamy, when the locust hordes erupted from the ground and overran humanity, killing billions, yes, billions with a B. 25% of humanity is killed in just 24 hours, and the locusts quickly turned Sera into a war-torn wasteland, pushing humanity to the brink of extinction. 14 years after Emergence Day, you are dropped into the oversized boots of Marcus Phoenix, a former soldier who gets busted out of jail by his best friend Dominic Santiago.
What about the other prisoners? You can't just leave them here.
They're gone. Hoffman pardoned everybody.
Is that right?
Welcome back to the army, soldier.
Thanks, man. You're such an upstanding guy. I can't wait to help you reunite with your long-lost wife. I like how even though Marcus has been in prison for 4 years, he's clean-shaven, except for the soul patch. I assume because he's such a badass, he simply shaved with his own fingernails. Marcus and Dom fight their way through the prison and narrowly escape a corpser trying to clap their cheeks. Get it? Because it looks like a hand.
Hey, that really sucked!
Together, you and Dom team up with Delta Squad and fight in humanity's last stand against the nightmarish locust threat. Along the way, you recruit science expert Baird and Cole, a former thrashball player. So here are the bad guys. Go kill them. That's pretty much it for the story. But that's okay. This is a roller coaster, and it ain't about the story, it's about how thrilling the ride is. Still, I think most would agree this is the weakest part of Gears 1. Colonel Hoffman lays out the main objective to use the light mass bomb to destroy the locust tunnels. And some stuff happens, and then you do. Mission accomplished. Most of the side characters are forgettable, one-dimensional caricatures, but the main cast is decent.
Ceasefire! Dipshit.
Phoenix is great. You can tell he has an I'm sick of this shit kind of attitude, but he's too tough to outright complain about anything, so he just keeps marching forward.
Are you the Marcus Phoenix? The one who fought at Asfield Fields?
Yep.
Wow, cool!
Not really, dipshit.
And he clearly holds some resentment over his imprisonment, but he puts his feelings aside for the sake of humanity. John DiMaggio does a fantastic job of making Phoenix a fucking Chad.
You think they know what we're doing? Well, we're not here to sell cookies.
Dom is just your best buddy. I don't often complain about voice actors, but the VO for Dom feels like a relic of that era of video games when they didn't really know how to do good voice acting. He does get better in the sequels, though. Cole is comic relief meant to reflect the player's attitude as he treats fighting the locusts like it's a game, which, technically it is. And Baird is a critical asshole who thinks he's smarter than the rest of Delta Squad. The chemistry and banter is fun for the most part, but it lacks a certain depth. Sometimes the dialogue feels like how you and your homies would talk shit to each other over Xbox Live, so that's pretty accurate.
Plan? What plan? You don't have a plan? You're just talking shit. Plan.
Just wait and see, asshole.
So, what? You hang out with Stranded?
I don't hang out, dickwad. I'm looking for somebody.
Shut up, Baird. Keep moving.
What? What'd I say?
But often the dialogue is so basic and plot-focused, it becomes predictable.
Control, this is Delta Squad. Control, this is Delta. 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 Control. Control, this is Delta. Control, this is Delta. Control. This is Delta. Control, 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 this is Private Phoenix.
What? That's like the formula, you know, Delta Squad shows up to a bridge, and they're like, Control, this is Delta. We've arrived at a bridge. Should we cross it?
Yeah.
Affirmative. Commencing bridge crossing operation.
Great, let me know when you
Control, this is Delta. Bridge crossing operation in progress.
For the love of God, Phoenix, you don't have to fill me in on every minute detail.
Control, this is Delta. Bridge crossing operation complete. Request new orders.
Fuck you.
Delta, this is Control.
What? I feel like dialogue, even exposition, is always better when it reveals something about a character.
5 years ago, I lost 30,000 men in the blink of an eye. And the world just fucking watched.
but so often the cast just talk about what they're doing or what they need to do, how to do it, and it gets kind of boring.
Is that the resonator?
Nah.
Now what? Let's get that resonator.
And the Oscar goes to...
Now we have to talk about the Brumac in the room. Gears of War's story is confusing because it works and it also doesn't. Let me explain. I think every entry in a franchise should be able to stand on its own and as part of a series. If you take out the Gears of War sequels, the first game's story kind of sucks Locust dick. Reason being, Gears 1 does little more than plant important seeds that only sprout and grow in the sequels. So if you played the first one as a casual, it's real easy to feel like, wow, I didn't learn much about this universe, and I don't really care about any of it, but the game was super fun, and I suppose that's what they were going for. Now, you guys know me, I'm not usually critical about storytelling in video games. But here's the thing, Gears 1 is kind of like Doom. They are the exceptions to the rule. Sure, they could have fleshed out the narrative more, but doing so might have taken focus away from the high-octane gameplay. In other words, the core appeal. But then again, there's also times where control is wrestled away from you so characters can spout exposition over a radio and you're forced to walk at a snail's pace. I hate it when games do this. Sometimes it happens when there's still enemies around. Yes, I'd love to restart the checkpoint, thank you. I can respect the team at Epic for making Gears more of an action movie and not ham-fisting an allegory about the war in Iraq down my throat, which is what Gears 1 was intended to be. The game is sparse on the details, maybe suspiciously sparse. Like, how long have the Locusts been on Sarah? Why did they declare war all of a sudden? How did human civilization survive this long without being aware of the massive alien threat deep underground? You hear that? That's the sound of you dead on the battlefield for asking perfectly logical questions. If you really pay attention though, you might start asking yourself, is this really a fight for humanity's survival? A valiant effort to secure our future? Are we just cogs in the war machine trying to colonize hostile planets? You can ask questions and ponder the mysterious reasoning behind everything, but the game is equally enjoyable if you turn your brain off completely. And maybe that's why the first game is so light on context, because the cog wants to hide the horrible things they've done. From you, the player. They don't want us to know this might really be a war for emulsion, for resources, and not a war for survival. A lot of the backstory and world building is in the back, tucked away. At one point you encounter a small group known as the Stranded in Act 2. They don't take kindly to Delta Squad, and it's implied that's because COG used the Hammer of Dawn to strike and destroy their own cities, killing millions and leaving many others stranded.
If we stay here, they'll kill us for sure.
Relax, will ya?
You relax. You Gears all suck. Bunch of bloodthirsty fascist pigs.
But a lot of these moments are so subtle, it's easy for them to fly over your head. I mean, not too much really happens in Gears 1. A couple characters are killed off, there's a main villain or two, it introduces the Locust in this universe, but the story is mostly driven by its plot, not so much the characters. I think the biggest complaint I have is that the story never feels like what we saw in the Mad World trailer. I never got that same sense of hopelessness and desperation. In the end, making a fun video game is more important than making a compelling story. So Gears of War still succeeded. It made people interested in the future of this series, and it planted the right seeds. Gears of War as a franchise seems like it's fallen on hard times recently, so it's jarring to look back on these old documentaries and see how much faith Microsoft put in the project.
Microsoft, in the end of the day, they're a publisher who understands that it's about making a fun game. They understand the tension. Their job is to push, and our job is to pull, but we both respect that.
Gears of War established a solid fanbase exclusively on Xbox, sold over 1 million copies within 2 weeks. Epic Games brought third-person cover shooters to the mainstream. The Lancer and logo became iconic and synonymous with gamer culture seemingly overnight. Gears of War had such a profound impact on the game industry, and it was a massive W for everyone involved. Microsoft gained a new killer app for the 360 at the perfect time. Epic Games showed off the power of the 360's hardware and Unreal Engine 3, demonstrating to other developers that Unreal was capable of powering top-tier AAA titles. Gears of War didn't just sell millions of copies, it sold the engine behind it and set a new standard for graphics and cinematics. In the end, Gears of War wasn't just another cog in the Microsoft money-making machine. It was an opportunity for everyone to prove themselves, and they did. They fucking nailed it. And while the story left a lot to be desired, this is as good of a starting point you could possibly have with a new IP. And that is why Gears of War was so awesome. So thank you all for watching, hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to check out Display and order some amazing metal posters, link in the description and pinned comment. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to the Act Man for more buff content. Alright everyone, that's all I got for today. This is the Act Man signing out. Peace!